Yeah? We're good? Perfect. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Optimize Prime, Transforming Your Workflow. Our first official panel today on day 2 of Graph Expo. And we have panelists from these companies up here, but we're going to let them introduce themselves right now. So we'll start off with Todd. Please introduce yourself and briefly tell everybody a little bit about what you do, and the conversations you're having about workflow over at Xerox.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. My name is Todd Beniski. I work at Xerox, and I'm a worldwide marketing manager on our workflow and solutions team. So I am a marketing manager for all things software at Xerox. The conversations we're having here are really about the topic of today is spot on. It's mostly efficiency. I mean, in a competitive marketplace, operational efficiency is key. So customers want to be able to get more jobs through, they want to get higher quality, they want to get more consistency. All of the key business metrics are where workflow can play a very key role in those metrics. And then one other thing that I will say, one of the newer conversations we're having today, and I think it's a growth area, there's the optimization of your workflow, but there's also making sure your workflow is extendable. And we start talking about multi-channel communications and things of that nature. So the number one priority, I think, for everybody is let's get things done in an efficient manner. And then number 2, put yourselves in a position to hopefully grow revenue. So thanks for having me today.
Thanks so much. Rico.
Good morning. I'm Joe Ferrara, the Director of Workflow Automation within the consulting group at Rico. My team is focused on implementing solutions on behalf of customers, making sure that ultimately everything that they purchased is installed, working correctly, trained on properly, and that the customer's ROI is yielded as quickly as possible. The conversations that we're having at Rico is ultimately about how it is that we look at their business from an assessment perspective, ultimately through making sure that the correct products are installed at their shop, and then the most important part is making sure that those products are being utilized most effectively so that they can gain those efficiencies that we spend so much time talking about. So thank you, and glad to be here.
Chili Willy.
Thank you for that introduction. Kevin Gumina from Chili Publish. I'm CEO and co-founder. Chili Publisher is an online document editor, for those who wouldn't know that. And workflow is very important for us. Although we're not workflow solution, we are very early in the workflow, and we generate input for all the workflow systems sitting on my right and on my left. So I think it's a very interesting topic, and it's very important for us that these solutions are very open, so that we can easily tie into that and give input to those workflow solutions.
Thank you so much. They'll share the other microphone. Thanks. Stefan from Arifik. School.
Okay, my name is Stefan Karlsson. I'm the Chief Technical Officer of the company Arifik. And what do? We are a software company that releases new technology. We do automatic print estimating. That means that we enable print quotes for custom jobs in seconds. And we believe that the workflow, it starts at the customer. The customer can upload a file to our server and get the price immediately without any skilled estimator do an estimate and come back to the customer. So this is what we do.
Thank you so much. Paul.
Thanks, Dan. Happy to be here.
Pablo.
Solimar Systems has been part of the Printerverse for a couple years now, and we will keep coming back. I wanted to really, when you said Optimize Prime, and I love her stuff about transforming here and all that, it's very critical to understand that people are wanting to go to a different level. I think our business is mature, and we are getting to a place where we're running out of ways to optimize things, but people want to report better on them and share that information at different levels. So what I'm seeing is that capturing that information and turning it from static reports or silos of information into something you can use in a business intelligence fashion to make really good quality business decisions in the future is where we're going and how we're supporting people today.
Thanks so much. Tom?
Hi everyone, I'm Tom Bowman. I'm the product workflow manager for page-wide web presses at HP, which is our inkjet division. You guys captured a lot of good things there. Some of the things that we're seeing that hasn't been mentioned in workflow is not only the productivity and movement of jobs through the systems. With us, and a lot of that is short runs on jobs, especially in publishing and packaging and other markets besides the traditional direct mail and transactional. We're also seeing the trends into those kinds of variable data concepts into non-traditional printing like that, like graphic arts kinds of things. Another thing we're doing is we're trying to take value out to the end user. So not only are we working on the productivity of it, but what can we do? Can we connect these products to the internet? Can we bring them other features that a publisher or a brand owner for packaging might be able to use that they haven't been before?
Thanks so much. So I'm going to ask these questions, and mostly everybody is in the same area, but some of you are in different areas, so I'll break it up a little. But for right now, and it's easier for me to refer to you guys by companies because that's really what people will remember. So this question, I'm going to start with Xerox, actually. In your opinion, where does workflow start? Where does it end? This is from a printer asked this question, by the way. Where does workflow start? Where does it end? And how do you assess if yours is working optimally? Most important, what do you measure against?
Wow, that's, and how much time do I have? 2 minutes.
If you're asking, you're already going to be too long.
The workflow starts and ends. It depends on typically the customer that we're talking to. Everybody's going to have a different answer to that. I know we have folks from Chile here, which are going to start that discussion way up front.
I'm interested to hear what they
it's
say.
very dependent on the people that I talk to. There's what I call the classic printer. They think very close to the printer. So their workflow is going to start when that job hits the floor, and it's going to end when it's in a box. There are others that are going to be much more customer facing, and they're going to think about that workflow as into the creative clouds, designs, document design back and forth. So a lot of it is what my experience would say. That is, I hate to take sort of that middle road here.
No, it's okay.
But it really is customer centric. Each customer is going to have a part of that workflow. Now the metrics at the end of the day, for most of us, most people, the first thing they're concerned with is that time to completion or time to print. I mean, there's a lot of them that we can chase, but again, it's the efficiencies that is the number one. There's a lot of other key areas that I would say people are after, but the workflow definition will vary, but that efficiency is quite honestly the number one question or the number one ask for customers that we see personally, at least in the Xerox booth.
Okay, so let's take that, give it to Rico. So let's move to, let's agree that workflow starts and stops for people in different places, although for Chile and Arific, I do want you to stress what that is for you. But for Rico, so we don't reiterate that again, how do printers assess if their workflow is working optimally for them, and what should they be measuring against?
Yeah, so I think most of the times when customers are looking to measure against where their workflow really should be, we try to look at it from the best in the industry. So what are some of the best tools? We break it down by a series of questions where we ultimately can rate it on a scale of 1 to 5 of, if we were to take a certain category and break it down to what is the most simplistic form of that workflow and give that a score. And then as you start to take that workflow and add more automation and more consistency and taking more and more out of that workflow until ultimately it becomes a very smooth, transparent process in their business processes, that's where we look at them as the best that they are in the industry and what they should truly be measuring against.
Thanks so much. And Chile, you are sitting in a different place, so you can take every part or any part of that question that applies to you.
Okay. Again, we're not a workflow solution, so what we've done over the years is to really try to build an ecosystem just to answer to those questions.
Yes.
Because it's really difficult depending on the customer where your workflow should start. I mean, I think let's call it operational excellence should be there anyway, so you should be able to get in a PDF if you're a typical printer, and you should be able to produce that in the most optimal and automated way possible. But for Chili Publisher, what's again very important is that you can integrate it with other solutions. And that's the point I was making during my introduction, is good APIs. And I'm relatively new to this industry, only been around for 6 years. And I think I finally see a trend where people are coming to very open solutions. I mean, I think HP has a good initiative on that. There's other vendors that have good initiatives. And I've really seen the past 6 years towards more openness, where there's still a couple of vendors in this industry who tend to, make API calls very expensive. You have to pay for this module, and they want to lock down their system. I think that's a bad approach. The modern way of doing software is to make sure that you can combine different modules, and then depending on what your customer needs, or even customer specific. So it's not just our customers, but it's their customers. They might require a different workflow as well. So you need to have that flexibility.
So just because you do a collaborative document editing, how is someone supposed to know that they would even need that? I mean, is it by time? Like, is it taking me too much time to get a file out?
I mean, first of all, Chili Publisher is there to make you money. That's
oh, okay.
I mean, it should either take away manual labor, repetitive work, or it should be an added value for your customers. It could be something where I'm publishing automatically from a database, so I don't have to go to prepress to create a label and then push it down to the workflow. So it really depends on where your focus lies.
Okay, thanks. Stefan, Rifik.
Okay. We do lots of automatic impositions, and that means that the customer can when they are designing the artwork, they sit in design. That's when the workflow starts. Because if they use our plugin in design, then you can get the price of the printed matter directly while they are designing their artwork, so they can match it to their budget. And that means that what happens in the background, well, it's automation. Everything is automated, the workflow. The document can be transferred into the cloud, into the printer's server, or it can be exported into the prepress workflow automatically. And with the price is calculated automatically. So we have the technology to reduce all human stops even for custom jobs, not only for standard products in a web shop.
So basically, it's almost a function of like lean manufacturing. You're cutting down on processes time, you're cutting down on employee time, which basically gives printers an opportunity to have margins that they might have more room in.
Exactly. These times, number of orders increases and the average order value decreases. That means that administration cost will be a much higher part of the total print cost. So that's where the money can be saved.
Thank you so much. Paul?
I thought you were using Solimar.
Solimar. I'm very sorry. I forget because I know
I'll keep you in
Solimar,
track.
not Solimar. Solimar.
So the question, where does workflow start? I think it starts with an idea. And so if somebody wants to get that idea out, whether it's physically printed or communicated, it needs to be captured at the source, so that marketing group, the line of business folks, the business tools that they're using is where it starts for me. And then I also think that workflow isn't an A to Z or Z. I'm bilingual.
We're in America, it's Z.
And so I think it's actually circular. So it goes from that idea around through the traditional processes, and then what ends up happening is that it gets split out into the communication media that somebody wants to ingest it in, and then the data is now being captured both at the floor level, on the operation floor level, throughout the entire process, and then that feedback to the original idea owner or the person who started it. And once they do get that information back, the workflow continues or is readjusted on the fly. And I think that's where we're at today.
Thanks so much. HP.
All right, I think Paul's on the right track as far as our idea of what workflow is also. So it does start with an idea, whether that's a brand owner, a brand, a product, a message, some idea that needs to get communicated out to somebody. It has not quite a stopping point, but an intermediate point of an action, somebody to buy something, somebody to react to it, to take in the message, to learn something. There's
Tom,
something
could you
in
lift the microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry. So there's something intermediate that is an important takeaway for the end customers to see. And then again, it's also a closed loop to improve that process so the next message gets improved, the next product gets improved, and things for that end user.
And in your opinion, what do printers measure against? Themselves? Am I doing this the best I can do the way I did it last week, next week? I mean, that's actually a question from the audience.
Well, the measurement comes in a number of different stages. So ultimately, this is something for the business. You're trying to improve sales. You're trying to teach somebody something so that what you're measuring is against what that result is that you're targeting for.
Oh, okay.
In between, there's a production step. There's a content creation step. Everybody has their own measure of the different stages in the workflow that they need to react to.
Thank you so much. So every Wednesday at 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. on Twitter, I host Print Chat. And we crowdsourced some questions for all these panels from the printers out there. So when I say this question's from a printer, that's where it's coming from. But this is a specific question from a specific print chatter that we know. So I'm just going to ask it directly. The question is framed around, people need to make changes, but in order to make a change, you actually have to make a change. And sometimes you bump up against that's not the way we do things around here. So our friend print chatter Rob Whitney asked, what is your advice for changing the minds of management and in regard to introducing a new workflow, introducing a new process, perhaps eliminating a time or an estimator or anything like that. What is your advice and to change the mind of the management? And do you have any case studies or information you can share about that that shows profit, an ROI case study of profit from your tools implemented that have helped printers save money, generate new revenue, improve their processes, anything you want to share? Let's start with, let's go back to Xerox. You're here.
I think I'm getting an unfair draw on some of these questions.
Why, just because you're in front of me?
Yeah, that's exactly why.
Now you're going to get bopped with my alien. You're also in the alien bop seat.
When you're trying to manage up through the chain, when you're talking to your managers, you're talking to print shop owners, maybe in an implant you're talking to somebody that might not be a printer but has oversight or management capabilities there. Usually, and I think that the person asked the question was actually spot on about the financials, you need to have, in my opinion, you need to have a business discussion with them. Removing a bottleneck isn't something that they would necessarily resonate with. They might understand the words, of course, but what is the cost savings? What is the ROI? And I don't remember where the ROI discussion started. I think at the back half of the table about you need to put real business metrics usually in front of senior management because that is the ultimate driver. They're looking for whatever the business driver is, whether it's, again, more jobs through your shop, taking out the cost, taking out the touch points. If you can put a positive and a believable and a concrete ROI in front, that usually is enough to swing the needle. And then I won't go into the specifics, but Xerox does have several case studies, and they do. And if you go to Xerox.com, and I can get help here in a minute with the actual link.
No problem. That's
perfect.
perfect.
Case studies are.
So
I can share it.
Xerox.com is it the Xerox.com digital printing, which Xerox.com/production case studies. So Xerox.com/production case studies, and you can download all the information you need from there. Rico Suave.
So I think it's an interesting question. We've been presented with this scenario quite a few times where, senior management doesn't really want to change. The status quo is kind of the way that it's always been. We really looked at this as an opportunity to dig into the data and understand where their challenges are, as well as where they've been successful. I think it's important that you sit and you point out all the good things that are happening, as well as where those opportunities are, so that we can really look at it from a data perspective, show a valuable ROI on the back end, and have them believe that there's a team supporting them that can actually make that ROI reality. Because I think all too many times companies, as well as the executives, look at ROI and say, is that truly reality? Is that something that I can actually yield in 12 months, 14 months? And so sound practices is where that believability in that ROI should really come from. And as far as case studies go, Rico has a ton of them. I'm sure we can get you some information that would lead you to those that bit of information. So thank you.
Okay, well, they're print chatters, so at Rico Pro Print, just ask them there for some case studies, and they will hook you up. Kevin?
So I think there's different ways to find ROI, as I mentioned earlier. What I'll do is I'll go over 3 cases that I know. I'll keep them anonymous from our customers. You could try to see, like I said, how you do operational excellence. So let's say you want to be a price broker, or not broker, but you want to be able to give the best price online as an online printer. The example is a big German online printer. What they do is they have their workflow that much under control that they're capable of updating their pricing online 3 or 4 times a day, because they know their production capacity, they know how much staff is available during the weekend, so they're actually going to change their pricing on a Friday evening to get more business card business in for the weekend. So that's one way of doing it. It's very amazing. It took them a lot of effort to get there, a lot of money as well. Right. But it's very unique, because you'll go at 9 in the morning, you'll find a certain price. At 10 in the evening, you'll find a different price. And it allows them to maximize their capacity. Another one is a very large label producer, and what they do is they sell labels. So it's basically scotch, tape that you would put on a box. They sell to e-commerce business owners, and they've been selling for many years. And they said, okay, how can we get more value out of this product? So what they did is in their workflow, they added our chili publisher in the front. People could personalize that. They're still having the same production workflow, but all of a sudden they charge a markup of 15% because you can personalize it. It's pretty simple.
Great.
And the other one, the third case, is where they said, look, we're not Vistaprint. We want to, they're in the card business, birth cards, wedding invitations, that kind of stuff. And they said, we're not Vistaprint. We don't want to compete on price. We want to keep the value very high. And they actually charge much more than their competitors. But again, their production workflow is so optimized that they can deliver within 12 hours after ordering. So that's really fast. So it depends. You have to look at where you want to focus your ROI case.
Right.
And I think there's different use cases there.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Terrific.
Okay. The question was how can we change the mind of management using the software?
Yes, that, and also how have you helped customers make more money with your software?
Yeah. Horrific technology enables a new way to work on the printing companies, because we have a system that bridges sales systems and production systems. And to give examples, we have customers that have used the horrific technology to transfer their organization. They had previously a department of estimators and CSRs sitting at home, and they have used our technology to get them out meeting customers instead, because we have the technology to make them come home with orders, not RFQs. So that's a real power for them. It's nowadays it's not always the lowest quote, the lowest bid that wins the order. It's the quickest quote. The first one that can get a print price directly to the customer, you get the job. And the other example is that our automatic estimating technology enables you I bet all you printers got an RFQ form on your website, and we can turn that RFQ form into an order form, because we can do estimates or whatever the customer want to print. We can give them the price, and when they press order, or upload the file is transferred automatically into the workflow, and the commercial the commercial price is attached to the order, so it can go into production automatically. So that's two very strong examples of how to make money.
And also, as Helene, who was here before for you for the industry brief this morning, mentioned, 30% of purchases are purchased by the quickest price that someone can get. So that's really a value proposition. That's 30% potential more jobs you can get by using your system. Paul?
Solimar Systems.
Sorry, I'm so
Print
sorry.
Media Center.
Solimar.
A wise person said to me once, Paul, you can't be overdressed or overeducated. So if you keep up with all the trends that are going on, and you can then help to get a collaboration within your organization, and I'm going to talk about it from the transaction printing side of insurance, finance, that sort of thing, where you're going to get compliance to the table, finance and IT operations to the table, because you're educated and you put together an agenda that they are then interested in, because it should align with the company's business objectives and their problems. So if you can translate a business problem into something that you can help optimize from an operations perspective, they'll listen. For example, if a company hasn't paid dividends or stopped for a quarter because they didn't cut enough costs or they didn't make enough revenue, and you can contribute to that and tell them how you can help them to do that, it would be great. And an example of that, and another one, for example, is hiring freeze. There's been a hiring freeze at an organization because they're trying to cut costs. How can you contribute to that with automation? One of the things that we're seeing, a big one, and you talked about the revenue generation component, I have an example here of a document that, plain Jane monthly statement, that all of a sudden, when you scan your phone over, brings up some augmented reality and brings it to life and throws that marketing video so that they can then cross-sell to their current customer base. It's going to drive some revenue as well.
Thanks very much. HP.
All tangled up here. I'll talk to you a little bit about embracing change and moving people out. A couple of things is finding a vendor that's a partner for you to help you through the numerous steps of the process of change, and also going towards a crawl, walk, run sort of methodology for them. Some of this change can be intimidating, and so you're adding color, adding personalization, adding all these changes and everything. There's a lot of people that don't know how to use variable data yet. They haven't worked with color in the past. We want to be able to help them, walk them through this, so that it's not so overwhelming that they can't get to it without some nice staging. And we've also had some good results. I'll quote one of our customers that started doing personalized newspapers. They did a regional newspaper. They started putting their customers' names in it, in the headlines, in pictures and things in it. And not only did the people appreciate that, they started showing their friends, and then all of a sudden, instead of this newspaper declining in orders, they all of a sudden started getting this bump of people calling in all of a sudden, because I want that paper that has me in it and personalized. So it's very good success.
All right, so we'll stay with you and we'll come back this time.
Okay.
This is a question from the printers in the print chat audience, and they wanted to know, what is the cost in dollars and resources and time to implement a workflow, an optimal workflow system, and more importantly, I'm tacking this on, what is the cost not to?
The cost is missed opportunities. The cost is lost is the cost is cost. You're not getting the most out of your value for your equipment, the lowest cost you can get, and the best value for your customers. So that's the cost of not doing it. The cost of doing it, boy, that's all over the map. Certainly starts with looking at what you're doing now and where improvements can be. It could be very simple. It doesn't require a lot of equipment. It could be just looking at how you're doing things, how you step things, move your finishing closer to the presses. Things like that are not big cost items just to get started and improve workflow. And then again, with the crawl, walk, run kind of scenario, find ways to keep taking steps towards a process. And it can be all over the map depending on where you're starting.
Thanks. Solimar.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you. I learned.
Adult learning, they say it takes 7 times to learn something, and you've done it in 3.
Thank you, Solimar.
So one of the things that the question is amazing. Cost, resources, and time, which some might argue that they're all the same thing. But as far as knowing what it will cost for that particular printer or organization, it always depends where you're at today. And as our friend from HP just said, understanding your current state, and once you understand that current state, filling the gaps or optimizing those gaps really get you there. The cost not to, or the opportunity cost, is really big today. It's become table stakes to have certain controls and a smooth process in place. As Stefan said, if you don't have some of these things in place, or you're not efficient, you're not going to win the business in the first place. So I think that's really the cost. And as the game gets upped every day, if you're not keeping up, you will be eliminated, or there will be an alternate channel.
Thanks so much, Solimar. Terrific.
Okay, I'll try to answer this question as you asked. The dollars and resources and time. We can set up a system for any printer at within a couple of days. We get you up and running within your operation, because we have all the printing presses and technology and specifications in our database already, and paper stock and things like that. So about the cost in dollars, that depends on the size of the company. A small print shop just pays $100 a month. It's a flat monthly fee, independent of the number of users. And a larger print shop can pay a little more. But just come to our booth, 618, and then we'll give you an offer directly in the booth.
Thanks so much. Chile.
Yes. I think the cost of not doing it is the end of your business, to be honest.
Thank you very much.
I'm really...
No, I've been waiting for someone to say it. No,
it's,
I've been waiting for someone just to tell the truth.
Excuse me, I said elimination.
Come on. I didn't hear elimination.
Oh, okay.
You're from Canada. You're too nice. I missed it.
Wow. Okay. The cost of doing it is very hard. I mean, first of all, we're not the workflow system, so again, but what I think is really important is to start with a vision and then iterate it. Iterate it as much as you can, just like you would do in software development. Try to work in sprints, do an implementation of 4 weeks, try to make some revenue, try to see some results, set some KPIs, and then do another iteration. And don't fall for the big mistake that everybody tells you. We'll do a year of implementation and then you'll start seeing results. I think you should just do it in small iterations. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you very much, Rico Suave.
So the cost of not doing it, I actually had the same note that it will put you out of business. There's too many printers, whether that's commercial printers or implants, that are just craving for change and looking for it, that if you're not doing it, they will take those time and resources.
Yes.
So the cost of implementation is an interesting question. And when I really look at this, I look at it from the perspective of desire of the printer. The more desire you have for implementation and change, I think ultimately the better the process will be for you at the end. When we look at it from a data numbers perspective, if you just look at the spreadsheets and you don't ultimately have that desire and the hard work that really goes into that implementation, you're going to end up with not the results that you ultimately intended. So I would definitely, caution all the printers out there that, as you look at these things, don't just look at them from an ROI perspective. Look at them from, how your ROI matches your goals and how those goals can be achieved within your shop, whether that's incrementally as one big piece, because that's what will get you the most distance.
Perfect. We'll hear from Xerox, and then we're going to take some questions that came over from the internet.
Okay. Actually, in hindsight, I think I like going first better. I'm just kidding.
That's what happens when you make a comment and you sit next to me.
Thank you, Bob.
You lose.
I'll take the cost question, and obviously everyone at the table knows, and in the audience knows that's impossible to answer. What I'm going to talk about is make sure that you evaluate and understand certain things about the vendors and the solutions that you're going to look at. And I'll give you a couple of examples of cost drivers that you can impact or you can talk to solution providers about. The first is a cloud-based solution versus an on-premise-based solution. It's a total teeter-totter of economics at that point. With a cloud-based solution, typically it's much less upfront, a little bit more month to month, but there's an end to that cloud subscription. So you've lowered your financial exposure. You've also lowered your commitment to that workflow solution if you can't operationalize it. On-premise is larger upfront, lower month to month, the transition back and forth. You see how you have levers here when you talk to the vendors about your commitment, your upfront costs, your usage, some of the gates to drive that. So you can impact that. The other thing that you want to make sure that you talk to your vendors about is the scalability. Is the solution start small? How modular is it? Because the let's walk before we run is the perfect idea. Nobody that I talk to has said, Todd, push the plunger, blow up my workflow, and build it from scratch. Exactly zero in the 7 years I've done this. The idea is, how do you integrate? Where can you start to show the value and then let it grow over time? So think about, are you going to go big bang or are you going to start small? Will the solution scale? Do I want to go on premise? Do I want to go cloud? So there are things, the days of I've got one software solution, we're going to roll it out and we're going to implement it for a year and a half. You don't have to do that anymore. You can work with the vendors, understand the delivery mechanisms, understand the scalabilities and the integrations so that you have a lot more control over that cost and some of those risk drivers associated with cost.
Thank you so much. And Sandy Hubbard has been monitoring the live stream, and she has 3 questions from home.
Hi there. Our first question's from a commercial printer. They say they're on top of efficiency and automation, but can workflow improvement improve their quality?
Anybody want to take that? HP.
Actually, there are some points where the workflow can help with the quality. A lot of it is up front in pre-flighting. So depending on where your jobs are coming from, if you're not sure where the sources are, a lot of things you can do is pre-flight, check it, and put in some automation for fixing things as they come in. So the quality gets built into the process as opposed to manual things happening.
Yeah, I think one of the areas where we can really affect this is on the color management side, where we really look at workflow and color is almost the same thing. And that's an opportunity for us to really affect quality on a very large scale so that the end customer is getting the best result possible. So I think that's one area that people should really strongly start to look at.
Yeah, thank you. Quality, as they've already talked about, could be different things. So I'm going to talk about it from an SLA management perspective as quality, because if you don't get something out, that means that it didn't matter if it was great, or, so understanding that an SLA that we usually use in our vernacular is a master SLA. I like to refer to it that way because if I don't have paper on time, I can't print. If I didn't print it on time, I can't put it into an envelope. If I didn't get it there, and then all of those different pieces come together. So that all is affected by quality. So if you have controls over that, if you have the visibility into that, and the business metrics, then your quality will rise as well.
Okay, next question is from a short-run book publisher who wants to add a swing shift. She wants to know, how can workflow improve multi-shift situations?
I'll start there. I've worked with some of the larger printers, and the nice thing is you can set up your workflow to specifically identify. We talked about pre-flighting and the quality of jobs and the interrogation of the job. Whatever on the B shift, a lot of times there's less people. As an example, you might want to run longer run jobs, right? So because then you're going to get a better machine to operator ratio. So a lot of the B shifts tend to be the scaled down, give me the safe work, give me the longer run work, so I'm going to have less of those firefights. You can set up the workflow to actually pull out jobs, to flag it based on volume, maybe to flag it based on media. If it's a standard 8.5 by 11, on sort of the garden variety media, you know that that's pretty straightforward and safe work. You can have the workflow parking lot, some of those safer jobs, so that B shift can be, you'll have less of your subject matter experts there, but you can still increase your productivity and make sure that that shift is still a very valuable shift.
Yeah, there's a couple of points too. Some of the things like rules-based automation kind of can come into play for that. So if you do have some types of jobs that you wouldn't want to take to the second shift for some reason because of skill level, capacity of those kinds of things. Also in some of the tracking tools that we provide, we look at when the SLAs, when jobs are due, and we also look at jobs that are at risk. So some of the tools that we put in there are the different shifts and what shifts are available and everything to kind of pull into those calculations to see what the effect of that extra shift would be on the output.
Okay, so there were a lot of comments. People were surprised by the definition of workflow. A lot of them think of production workflow, pre-press workflow. So when we started talking about extendable and multi-channel communications, that kind of blew people's mind. So kind of quickly, and I want to make sure that the other folks can talk to this as well, let's talk about the future, say 3 to 5 years from now, on what workflow will mean.
Awesome questions. Thank you.
I think the fact that they're surprised is actually good that we have this debate. I think workflow is indeed much more than just a production workflow. It's basically running your organization and how to do that in the most efficient way. Omnichannel, as many know, will become more and more important as well within that workflow. And I think just different ways of generating orders that are going to result in print.
Go ahead, Seth.
Yeah. In 3 to 5 years, my guess is that everyone will take for granted that they can order print on the web online, and that's what we are going to do possible.
That's a great point. Paul? Solomar?
I think within 3 to 5 years, workflow is going to incorporate the entire organization, and it's going to stop being an operational discussion. It's going to be including lines of business, the folks that create it, the agencies that are involved, the application developers who are dealing with augmented reality and other elements out to those other channels.
Thanks so much. You guys?
I think that's a great point. It's really the reach of workflow. I think everybody's focused on, in the short term, the tactical is you want your print shop to run better. Strategic is where is print going to go? And I'll give you an example. I mentioned multi-channel before because I think as printers, we're communication companies at the end of the day. But we all know the shift towards electronic presentation. Does your workflow enable you or get you set up to add value to smartphones and tablets and computers? And that 3 to 5 years, that trend isn't stopping. We're not getting away from less electronic information. So understanding, is the workflow set up to add value? And a lot of printers get nervous about that, quite honestly. So the sentiment that we got from the question, I think, is a true sentiment of a lot of people, because a lot of printers think electronic pages are a threat to their business, right? Because if you're not printing it, you're not making as much money on that electronic page. What I found with the customers that have embraced that and begun to offer that, their print volume goes up because they have the capability to add value beyond print. because customers want a one-stop shop. If I'm a magazine printer, I don't want to go to the printer for the print and go to a web designer to design the web version for me. I just want to hand off my magazine and have the total capabilities. So the customers that have embraced this, let's add value beyond the printed page, or make sure my workflow has the integrations, has the hooks to get me there 3 to 5 years, maybe not today, you'll start to find that the tide will rise everybody at that point. So your digital volumes go up because your services and your capabilities become more robust as well.
Thanks so much. Let's hear from Rico, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah, just a quick note. I mean, ultimately, we spend a lot of time with our customers talking about the simple fact of don't just be a printer, right? I mean, that's what this conversation is. Be a service provider, right? Be a valuable aspect of whether it is that you're a commercial printer, be a valuable aspect to your customers. And if you're an implant, be a valuable portion of that organization so that they want to keep you around. I mean, that is where the trend is really going. It's all about how do I service my customers better, and I'm no longer a printer, but a service provider.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. This was a great panel. Very, very, very topical with the people who come to Print Chat. Very topical with the 94,000 members of my LinkedIn group. So thank you for representing. Really appreciate it. We'll be back in very shortly with the pinnacle panel here. We have the inkjet panel with HP, Canon, Xerox, and Rico all sitting together. Everybody making happy inkjet comments to each other. So join us. We're going to have, there's still some coffee and tea over here. Help yourselves and don't go anywhere. Thanks so much, everybody.
Claps for workflow panel.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. You held on to that.
That's
Let me tell you something. Inbox, outbox.
right. That's